Elizabeth Chappell, a lifelong entrepreneur who finally found my niche. After years of new ideas and jumping from business to business, I figured out how to turn a craft into a successful career. In 2016, I started a monthly subscription box for quilters. That little startup has grown into a thriving, multiple six-figure business that I am so proud of. As a published author, designer of fabrics and patterns being sold throughout the world, my favorite thing to do is to teach others how to grow a career of their dreams. Each week, you'll hear from me or from other guests who are creative entrepreneurs, so you can learn exactly what to do and what not to do to grow a career that's more rewarding and successful than you ever thought possible. If you're ready to turn your craft into a career that you love, I am so excited you're here. Welcome to the Craft to Career podcast. Welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to have Tori McElwain as the guest today. She has come out with a brand new book called Workshops Unleashed. And oddly enough, I am in a Facebook group for quilt pattern designers, and someone mentioned her book. And that's how this whole podcast episode came about. I reached out and was like, hey, this book looks amazing. My audience would love this. And you are going to love it. But first, I'm going to read a review from Keish. It's Keiish. Keish says, I had to stop in the middle of listening to episode 137 just to leave this review. I first found your podcast earlier this week by randomly searching craft, hoping for some direction and connection in my journey of starting a custom bling business. From the very first episode, I was hooked. But today, this episode hits differently. Your message on value spoke straight to me and shifted my mindset in a way I've been struggling to maintain. I've never saved a podcast before, but every episode I've heard from you is now in my archives. Thank you for being that girl. Your interviews are incredible, and I've taken so many notes. I am sticking by your side. I may be getting a little emotional as I'm reading this because I just am so glad that this podcast is helping. Thank you. Thank you. If you have not left a review for the podcast, it really is so helpful to just take a moment. If you're an Apple podcast, just scroll down to the bottom of the Craft to Career show, and it says ratings and reviews. And you can tap, there's 5 outlined purple stars, and you can tap however many stars you want to give. And then below that in purple, it says write a review. And that's optional. I mean, just tapping the stars is really helpful. But then if you want to write a review, that's like an extra little gift of love that you can send my way. So please take just a moment to do that. We're at 293 reviews, and I really would love to get to 300. So please take just a moment to do that. And now let's dive in. Tori is here and has so much to share with you. Let me introduce you to Tori McElwain. Tori, thank you so much for being here on the Craft to Career podcast. Can you give our listeners just like a brief introduction of who you are and what you do in the quilting world?
Yeah, I help quilters and crafters with their courses using course design and digital marketing.
Which is a perfect fit for my audience. But before we dive into that, which I am so excited to hear about, can you tell us, like, how did you start quilting? You know, when did you start quilting? How did the journey begin? What inspired you to start the Quilt Patch by Tori?
Yeah, so I started quilting when I was 9. I have a twin, so I say we a lot. So me and my sister, we started quilting when we were 9. We made our very first quilt with a family friend. And then I made my very first quilt all by myself when I was 12. It was a rag quilt. It had, I insisted that it had lime green faux fur in it. And my mom was like, that's not going to do the rag thing that we're trying to do. And I'm like, I don't care. I have to have it in it. I've been quilting that's over 20 years now. I'm not going to try to do math on the fly. That's over 20 years of being in the quilting industry, quilting. I've had a lot of fun with it. And I quilted on and off from 9 until about 20. So after I got married, my husband's in the military, and I really dived into quilting and really found it and really created it as a hobby when we moved into all these military housing. And it was all, I mean, if you know anything about the military, we move a lot, and everywhere we move, it has white walls. It's just blank canvases all over the place. So I wanted our houses to feel more like homes. So I created colorful quilts that we could take wherever we go, and I could throw on a bed, and all of a sudden this room transformed into home because I could bring that with us wherever we went. And so that's when I really dived into quilting. And from there, because I am a military spouse, we moved a lot. So my career has changed a lot. When my son was born, it was right at the end of the school year. So I was a teacher. I got my master's degree in curriculum and instruction. I got my Texas teaching credential while we were stationed in Texas. And then I had my kid, my first one, 2 weeks after the school year ended, or a week after. It was a week after the school year ended. So it was like perfect timing. And then 2 months later, we moved. So the Quilt Patch by Tori was born during that time when we were stationed. The next place we went was training. So we were only there for like 7 months. So I wasn't able to find a teaching job because we were only there for like 7 months. And I felt the need to help support my family financially, not just with being a stay-at-home mom. I had that ambition where I wanted to make money for my family. So I looked at my skills and I'm like, okay, I quilt and I can bake. And so I tried cupcakes and I tried making baby blankets, and the cupcakes I made, they tasted really good, but they looked awful. Like I could not do frosting to save my life. So I went with quilting, and that's how I started the Quilt Patch by Tori. I just started making baby blankets for my friends. Cause like I said, I was in my at that point I was more late 20s, but all my friends had kids. They were interested in memory blankets and baby blankets. So that's really where I got started. And it was just a business on a Facebook group at first. And then when 2020 hit, that's when I moved to an actual website. And then I started pattern design and teaching.
Okay. Well, okay. And I'm going way back, but are you and your twin identical?
Oh, we are fraternal.
Okay. I'm a fraternal twin as well, actually. So yeah, that's kind of fun. Okay. What a journey. And teaching, what topic did you teach when you were in the schools?
So at first I was a full-time aide for ELL students, so English language learners. And then I taught kindergarten for 2 years.
That is so cool. Okay. And my minor was also ESL, English as a second language. So
Wow,
yeah,
that's
I think
awesome.
teaching, there's something about like those of us who love to teach and then also find ourselves in the quilting community. And there's this amazing crossover. So, how has your background in education influenced your approach to designing quilt patterns and teaching workshops?
Well, because I studied more of the curriculum side, I think it prepared me to write more like step by step. So it was more like it focused on instruction because that's what I really loved. Like I loved working with the kids. They're adorable, especially 5-year-olds. They were high energy. Oh my goodness. Like the beginning of the year is always like herding cats, like having 20 kindergartners, like it was crazy. But I really loved the curriculum part. When we would sit down and plan our curriculum for the year, I would sit there and just go through all these like 50-page documents of Texas teaks is what they call them. And it was just fascinating for me. And so I think that really prepared me for coming up with my own quilt patterns and learning how to write out the technical writing of it and step by step. I also think that with my background in specifically teaching kindergarten is I was mostly focused on helping especially in workshops, helping build a skill rather than a project. So I always led with what do they need to learn to be able to make the project, not necessarily what project do they want to make, which is, I
I
think
like
maybe
that.
good and bad. Like it could, because like if I'm focusing more on skill, the pattern and the project may not be as appealing to market to other quilters, which I learned about that later down the road. But I think that's how it influenced it is really, I take a different approach than most quilters where I don't look at the project. I don't look at the art first. I look at the skills. And then break it down. Like, what do they need to learn to get to that skill and kind of build it that way?
Okay, I cannot help but ask. You said I've learned that maybe hasn't been as beneficial. In what way? When you approach things from a skill as opposed to like, here's how it looks. Tell me
Yeah.
more.
So I mentioned I started pattern designing and teaching at the same time. I mainly made patterns at first to teach workshops. And my first big one I did was a block of the month where I wanted to teach the main piecing skills for quilters. So the first one I tackled was the most popular, which was foundation paper piecing. So the pattern I made was a cactus,
Mm.
and which appealed to those in Arizona where we were stationed. But as a like pattern for the masses, it was kind of like, what? The second one was a lot better. It was a heart. But that first one with a cactus, I wanted to have every type of piecing you might find in foundation paper piecing. So the angles, but you'll also find like templates rather than different pieces on the actual paper. So it might be just the one piece of paper. I also did a Y seam. And when I shared that there was a Y seam in there, so many people got upset that there was a Y seam in paper piecing. I had people like fighting me on the internet. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's okay that foundation paper piecing has Y seams. Like it's okay. That's a thing
Opportunity
that
to
happens.
learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of pushback. So that's where I kind of came up with that was this cactus was, it was adorable little cactus. It had all the skills you need for foundation paper piecing, but leading with a cactus probably wasn't as appealing for marketing as it is for like, this is going to help you build the skills. And they're like, but there's a cactus.
Gotcha. So they're more the quilters are more generally interested in the outcome, like what is it going to look like when it's done? And then, oh, by the way, maybe, I mean, I wonder how many people would be curious. It'd probably be pretty advanced. Like you're going to learn this method. You almost don't want to tell them the Y seams in there. They come in and like, all right, now we're going to learn this. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Because that, well, then I led with like, here's a heart with angles. And then here is a hunter star where it's all Y seams. And that's what
Mm.
I found being so wonderful about paper piecing is they make the Y seams so much easier. So
Hmm.
that was really interesting, the pushback I got on that.
I almost wonder if you were to do, here's the heart, and we're only going to learn this one skill. And then if you do the hunter star and say, we are going to be focusing only on Y seams, if that might be a little bit more,
But
less
that's what
of
I
a
did.
big bite to chew. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what I did. It was like 1 month, it was going to be the cactus. And then that's going to introduce us to everything. And the heart, we're going to really work on those angles because it's really weird to do upside down and backwards. And then the next one was a challenge, whether you could choose curves with paper piecing or Y seams with paper piecing. So it was building those skills using a more challenging block as they went. And then the next skill was going to be like applique, or it is applique. And then the next one is improv. And then the last one was scrappy with some color thrown in there. So that was the entire program. So it was pretty massive. But like I said, I led with skill rather than
Yeah.
the project. Yeah.
Very cool. And then you said you started teaching when you started writing patterns. How did you get these, positions or whatever opportunities to teach workshops?
So what I did first was I started online. I was already teaching English online. I only did that for like 6 months. It wasn't for me. I did not like waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. This was teaching in China, so the time difference was crazy. So I already had the equipment, which was just the basic camera. I had sound system. I had the lighting. So that was really easy to just move online. And then when COVID happened, everything got put online. So it was kind of a natural thing. I started right before lockdown, like months before lockdown. So it was really easy for me to just kind of jump on the train and see what everybody was sharing and how I could also share. I'm doing a beginner. That's where I started was my level 1, level 2, level 3 of just basic quilting. Like that's where I started. And then my local quilt shop, I started long arming there to finish my own projects. And then she asked me if I wanted to teach, and she was able to stay open as what they call it, the essential businesses, because she had fabric for masks. So I did take a break and made like 900 masks or something crazy. I made over 1,000 eventually, but I took a break, started making masks using her fabric. So I was always at the quilt shop, and I was one of the only people that were allowed in. So she's like, "Hey, do you want to start teaching?" They're allowing us to open up the classroom again. So I started teaching in person as well as online.
Okay, that is so cool. And you recently have a book that you wrote that's published, coming out. It's called Workshops Unleashed, and it offers insights into designing like really impactful workshops. So, can you just tell us a bit about the book, the takeaways, what you hope the readers gain from this?
Yeah, the book is amazing. So I saw this. I say it's amazing because it's just amazing that it's physically like in my hands. Like
Yeah.
um, the book, it came out of people asking me how I went online. Right, that was the first thing was people like, how are you doing what you're doing? How can I do that? So I started coaching. I didn't realize it was coaching at the time, but I started like meeting with people and walking them through what I was doing. And then I created a course out of it, the Quilt Patch Course Academy. Well, it was first called the Creative Course. I don't know. It had too many C's in it. The name didn't make sense. So I changed it. But I realized after I had launched that a few times, I didn't have the bandwidth anymore. I had a second kid. And so I instead took that course and turned it into a book. So that way, no one had to wait on me, right? There was no waiting on Tori to launch this thing. It could just be in your hands, ready for you to go through and make your workshops when you're ready. And I approached it as a teacher. So what would I want in my hand at a workshop or preparing for a workshop? And one of my friends, Andy, from that's my co-host on Quilting on the Side, she actually
Yeah.
said it's like having Coach Tori sitting next to me, like while I'm planning my workshop, which was it was wonderful to hear because that's one of the takeaways I wanted them to have was that they had the support in this book. They had a resource in their hands that can take them from idea to an actual product that they can sell and offer online or in person, because I do cover both. And that's a question I get a lot is this just for online? No, it's for both because course design can apply no matter what you're teaching, where you're teaching. And the other big takeaway, which is something we got connected with when you were on the podcast, was I wanted them to feel encouraged and empowered that they can do this. Because I kept running into people going, well, I can't do it because of XYZ. I'm like, no, you can. You can do it. So there in here, you'll find a section called Meet My Students, which talks about all the different students that you might meet. And they have like fun names like Talkative Tina, Expert Edna. And like I go through like, how do you kind of approach some of these quilters, which can be a little jarring if you've never had an expert Edna in your class and you're not really sure how to invite them in without them taking over the class or things like that. Or talkative Tina, who just loves to talk to everybody, but she's slowing down the class and you only have 2 hours to get this project done. So how can you encourage her to talk and still enjoy the class, but also keep the class moving? And with that, I launched a podcast with the book called Meet Your Colleagues, which you were invited on for that. So they get to listen to 15 professional teachers in the crafting space. So the book is Quilters and Crafters. So we have quilters, we have knitters, we have crocheters, we have who teaches both pattern design, We have a large group and a large number of people who have made teaching at least half-time or full-time, like their full-time employment. So I'm hoping that with the tools in here, hearing their stories, hearing my story and how I kind of share the bits and pieces of my own journey, that they feel encouraged and empowered to go out and do the thing and to teach the skills and the wisdom that they have picked up over typically decades. The people that I work with, they're amazingly talented and they've been doing whatever they've been doing, whether it's wicker work or quilting, they've been doing it for decades and they're ready to retire. They're ready to share what they've learned. And it's amazing to watch because we did a book club and it's been amazing to watch those few people that were in there launch their courses and get out there and start really teaching.
I am noticing a trend right now, which is very timely to have you on the podcast, but I'm curious from your students as well and your experience. It seems like there's more money to be had right now in teaching these workshops or these smaller, I don't know, courses, whatever you want to call it, as opposed to simply pattern sales alone or the big mega course. Like breaking it down into these smaller workshops seems to be and this is at the time of recording, so who knows in a year or two from now how that will look. But do you see that trend yourself with you and your students?
I think so. Now that you said that, I launched a like landing page workshop, which was an hour. And I got more signups for that than a 3-day workshop for free that I
Yeah.
offered. And
Yeah.
I'm seeing that too, where I think people are kind of tired of Zoom, but they still want the instruction and they do want the community. And I think that's the push that we're seeing is more and more people want the community. It feels more like 2020 when we all went into lockdown and we're looking for our people and we had to go online because we couldn't do it in person. That's more what it feels like right now, where they're looking for their friends, they're looking for their groups where they can get together and talk about the things that they love. And those smaller sessions, those smaller groups are a place where you can do that.
I
Yeah.
cannot tell you how many people I hear talk about wanting connection, whether it's the hobbyist, the business owner. And we live in this world that has such a false sense of connection. I have so many friends on Instagram, but if you need, I was literally just on the phone with someone. She's like, I call these my casserole friends. Like, if I need a casserole, if you're in an emergency, if something crazy comes up, who can you call to come over? Because even these connections, like some of my best friends live in other countries or states, And so I think we just crave real connection, and a workshop can create that in a way that a course cannot, or a product. You go and buy a single thing, but to have a human connection is invaluable.
Yes, I totally agree. I like that casserole friends.
Right?
That's a fun phrase for that.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm like, how many casserole friends do I have? Shoot, who could I call?
And it makes me think of why would you want to launch a workshop? And I think that's a really important question to ask yourself when you're planning these offers is why? Why do you want to do this? Are you doing this to teach? Are you doing this to prepare your customers for your paid offer? Or are you doing this for a higher priced offer? Are you doing this to build connection? And then design your workshop, your learning experience around your why. So if it is connection, then you do want to make sure that you leave time for them to connect. So they're sharing what they're doing. They say hello when they get there. They share like their work throughout the workshop, and they give each other feedback and praise, and they get a chance to actually share and talk in the workshop. And it's not just focused on skill. Sorry, that's where my brain went. I was like, course design, you got
Yeah.
to figure out how to work that community in, which is all about that sharing and connecting. And it makes it so much more fun for you. And it makes it so much more fun for the people in the workshop.
Well, and too, I mean, to go back to this, like, what is the purpose of your course? Because I have been to things where it is for connection, and that looks very different. Because I also, when I first started quilting, went to a local quilt shop and they had a workshop on how to do quilt binding because I had no idea. And I was literally there. I just wanted to learn how to do the quilt binding. Yes, there were other people and we chatted or whatever, but like, I was kind of wanting to go in and out and like know this new skill and then be on my merry way. Whereas I've gone to other events, like I've mentioned, where it's more for connection. And I was like, oh, let's leave, some time to really connect. So I do love that. Like, what is your purpose? And make sure that you're gearing your workshop towards that. That's super smart. What are some of the most frequent questions that you have people ask you about a workshop?
Pricing is probably number one.
Mm.
Pricing. And that is, there's an entire section in the book about pricing. I called it Price to Thrive, because I really feel like most women undercharge their services and undercharge their skill. Even my own mother, my own mom, I went to visit her like last month, and she's hosting a teddy bear workshop. And she's like, oh, I'm just going to do like 10, I think it was $10. And I'm like, what? What? And she's like, oh, and it's like, no,
That
you
will
are a
not cover the
quilter of
costs.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, you won't even cover your costs. And like, you're a quilter of like 35 years, you're a professional long armor. Like, you have been hand piecing and like doing all the, and I got really impassioned, and I gave her a
Mm-hmm.
talking to, which is really unusual for me to give my own mother a
Right.
talking to.
Right.
So she was kind of surprised, and she was like, okay, I'll take it into consideration. It's like, good.
Right. She won't still, but you're like, come on.
At least I tried, at least I tried.
Right.
But
Yes.
yeah, pricing is probably number one what I get asked. And it's all about your, it's the value that they're getting. It's not your time. And that is something I think a lot of people still struggle with, especially when they first start their business, is understanding the value that they're bringing. And one of my favorite questions to ask is, to get you kind of thinking about pricing, is what would they pay someone to do this? Like, how much would they pay someone to do this for them? Like to long arm a quilt. they would pay anywhere from, depending on the size of quilt, of course, and how dense the quilting, but it could be anywhere from $60 to like 1,000, depending on what they want. And you're charging $35 to learn to long arm or learn on your domestic machine. And like just hearing that, the value there is just way different. And there's also, you have to think about how much value are they putting in if they're only paying $35 to learn free motion quilting? Like, are they really showing up to do their best work? Like, if I pay $35 for a quilting course, I'm going to show up and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to take these bits and leave. Versus if I show up, I pay $200 to be there. I'm going to be there. I'm going to tell my husband, you cannot reach me. You cannot call me unless there's an emergency. I'm bringing my lunch because I'm not leaving the quilt shop. I am staying here and I am putting in the work to learn what this instructor has got to teach me. So those are the two mindsets that I kind of lead with when someone asks me about pricing. And then if they still need like a number, because of course it's still a little bit hard to imagine the number, and do some research. Look around at your local area, because between differences between like Phoenix, Arizona versus Bakersfield are going to be Bakersfield, California are different. Same as like Texas, if you're teaching in the middle of Texas versus teaching in Detroit, they're going to look different. So look at your local area, see who's offering a similar class. What are they charging? And then if you still feel like that's undercharging, then it's okay to charge more. Like it's okay. And I love Rachel Rogers on this because she's always like, double your prices. Like, how about you double it and see how that feels? Like, does that feel good? Yeah.
Well, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. A lot of like business experts will say charge less at first because you're new at it. It's almost like, and you can really use that to market, say, this is my first time offering this. I'm offering an introductory special. I'll be charging X amount. It will be going up. And that way they know it's at a discounted price, but it is also your first time or second time or whatever to get that experience. Because I think as a teacher, I would feel a lot more confident as a teacher if I have taught this and I've seen the students have success and it's like, oh, okay, they are able to make that thing. I got some feedback. Then I feel like you're going to have a lot more confidence going forward and charging this and saying like, yes, I've had these students. This is the outcome. Da, 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 da. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So yes, if this is your very first time offering anything, then a discount is fine. Especially if it's your first guild lecture, like approaching your local guild and being like, hey, I'm offering 50% off for my brand new lecture. Would you like to hire me? And usually you're going to get a yes, because 50% off is a great deal. But my accept is if I get this a lot with teachers who have taught only in person and want to go online. They'll say, oh, I have to discount it because it's easier. I'm like, no, you're still putting in the effort, the time, the expertise, the wisdom. So yes, accept. So yes, doing a very first time, especially because a lot of business experts will tell you to charge and then create it. So if you're doing that, I do think if you're building it with a group of people, then yes, it's a good practice to discount it so they understand that this is something that you're building with them. But if you've been teaching this in person for 20 years and you want to move online, no, absolutely not.
And I'd probably also say if, let's say you've been presenting at guilds for, I don't know, you've done it 10 times and you create a new presentation, I don't feel like you need to discount that either because you already have the experience. And I just think it's that first initial, anytime to teach or present, it's good for your peace of mind of like, let's ease into this for both of our sakes. And then once you've got that under your belt, then you're good. You're good to go. When I first started offering online courses and a membership, I needed a platform that could do it all without giving me a tech headache. That is why I chose Kajabi. I have been blown away by everything it can do. With Kajabi, I run my courses, a membership, email marketing, all in one place. You can even build a website with a blog and sell digital products, host webinars and coaching calls, and even set up an affiliate program, all without needing a dozen different tools. And the best part, it's powerful yet easy to use. I love it so much that I even created a free course to show you how to get started with Kajabi. Access my free course on how to use Kajabi and try Kajabi for free by visiting bit.ly /QC Kajabi or visit the show notes for the link. If you're ready to streamline your business and enjoy the process, give Kajabi a try. You are going to love it. You kind of mentioned this, but as a co-host of Quilting on the Side, the podcast, what inspired you to start that podcast?
That was a search for community. Me and Andy, we met in a class, and we had started building a community, and there was no community where we could just kind of talk shop and share our experiences and get our questions answered and reach out to people that we just wanted to talk to and ask them, how did you do this? And how did you do that? And we did, I led us doing a skills assessment for one of our annual planning things. And we did the Clifton Strengths assessment, and both of us had learner as number one. And someone had said, I think it was Rachel Rogers, honestly, that said, look at your strengths and then create a business, and in my head, business also equals marketing. So a marketing strategy that kind of goes along with your strengths, and learner is one of ours, which we have in common. And I'm like, well, that's great. We could do a podcast. Like, how wonderful would that be? And I was thinking about it, but I hadn't said anything out loud. And Andy actually came to me and was like, hey, Tori, do you want to do a podcast? I'm like, well, yes, but I can't write the second. You have to wait like a few months. So like a few months goes by and I'm like, hey, Andy, do you still want to do that podcast idea? So that's where it was born. It was just this want to build a business community and talk shop and ask people, how did you do what you're doing now? How did you get there? And we wanted to bring other entrepreneurs along with us. So that's been so much fun.
It is, isn't it? So what topics have you enjoyed exploring the most with your audience?
I love asking them like technical business questions. I think I kind of lead with that. Angie always leads with like stories, which I think we make a great team on that. She loves to hear about how they started quilting, which I do too. I love that part. But my brain always goes to, do you have a team? How are you marketing? How are you showing up on Instagram like consistently? And like, do you like Instagram? Where else are you showing up? How are you building the back end? How are your systems? I remember asking that to, we interviewed the CEO for Cotton Cuts, and I was like, and she was talking about her systems on the back end, and I was fascinated. I was like, how did you figure this out? It's just a background in it. So I'm just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, that's probably my favorite, is when we get into the nitty gritty of the business side of things and the marketing side, where I'm like, ooh, how did you figure that out? Yeah, I think that's probably it. And I also love sharing my own expertise. I'm a learner, as I shared. So I love learning new things. And then when I build something out of it, or when I create something, I can kind of bring that to the podcast. Like we talked about AI just a few weeks ago, because I was building out custom GPTs, and I wanted to share it with the quilting community because I felt like it was still kind of taboo for the quilting community to talk about AI. So I shared with Andy what I had just been doing, and Andy was like, hey, do you want to do a podcast episode on that? I was like, absolutely, let's do it. And then same with her, she was joining several summits, and I'm like, hey, Andy, I want to interview you about how you're doing all these summits, like how are you preparing and stuff like that. Cool. So it's been a trade-off where we can kind of use our own experiences as well as interviewing people. So it's been so much fun.
Okay, I do have a question on the AI thing, which, okay, I'm just going to throw this out there. I doubt this person, anyhow, I posted a post on Instagram about like the quilterpreneur doll. I don't know if you've seen that trend, but you use ChatGPT to make an image. And it was very polite. I appreciated how they approached this, but someone DM'd me privately and talked about just their concern about that post because of AI with artists and the pollution that it creates in the world, which I'll admit I was naive to that. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for bringing this up. Please tell me more. And they responded, but then I lost that DM. I was like, I'll come back and read this. And now it is lost in my DM box. And I feel forever terrible because I don't know who they are. And I wasn't able to read it. But point is, have you been approached by this? Has anyone asked you about like the ethical side of AI? Like that was new to me. I feel embarrassed to say that, but at least someone brought it up. I was like, wait, what? And then I've noticed since then, people have like hand drawn their own dolls, or they like Maud of the Retro Quilter did herself with actual things. And I was like, oh, really this cute. Is like a statement though about AI, which I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So if you're listening out there, if you're a listener and I didn't respond to your DM and you were texting or DMing me about that, please email me. It got lost in my DM box. But anyhow, yes, have you heard about this side of artificial intelligence?
I just became aware of what that might be. I didn't participate in that trend. I only use AI for like my business work. I was going to say work, but like
Yeah.
my business work because I am. I do have a full time job too, but I just recently, like I mean, just a couple of days, have seen stuff on that, but I haven't had a chance to dive in.
I
The
need
most
to as
concern that
well.
I have heard is security. So I did look into security and how to um, protect your own information, your own IP, if you're using a platform like OpenAI, like I am, and how
Mm.
to secure your information better. But I just the same as you, I was naive to it, even though I built the custom GPTs. And now I'm like, I'm going to have to look more into this
I
because
know,
I
right?
did
I'm
not
like,
quite, I didn't realize.
because
Yeah.
things will come up every once in a while and someone I actually and I really appreciate that they DM'd me and they were like, I don't want to create a big scene in your comment section, so I'm privately DMing you, which I really appreciated. I'm not here for the drama, but I also appreciate them bringing that to my awareness, as anyhow. So all the nuances of running a business and
Yeah. And
all of
and
that.
AI is so new. Like we're all learning more and more about it. Yeah, that's definitely something
Yeah.
I'm going to look into.
I know, right? As I talk about it, I'm like, well, got to do that. Okay, back to chatting shop. Looking ahead, what new projects or goals are you excited to pursue in your quilting and education? And which one are you leaning more towards? More like the quilt patterns or the education side of things?
I have completely stopped making patterns. Actually, I
Okay.
stopped probably 2 years ago. I think it was. However, I did get approached. Well, not approached, but there was a conversation on the back end with a distributor because I wanted to distribute my book. I want to have it in the hands of every quilt shop that has a works a workspace, like a
Smart. That's smart.
classroom. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that they have a tool for their teachers and they can have some really great quality classes and quality teachers. So I do want to go, I'm going to H&H just in a few
Mm.
weeks from when we record, and I want to approach distributors. And there was a back end conversation where they're not looking for a person with just one product. So I'm thinking of kind of rehashing because I do have paper patterns. So I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
of bringing those with me and saying, "Hey, this is what I have to offer. I have a book and I have patterns." So that those may come back around, but as of
Mm-hmm.
right now,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't. I have a few like half done patterns that I could revisit because I was so burnt out with quilting for years since right before my daughter was born. She's now 3. I've been burnt out on quilting for 3 years, and I just started quilting again for fun. Just I made my niece's wedding quilt. I made just this fun scrappy one. I made a rainbow one for my sister who's having a baby in just a few like weeks. Like it's so close. Um, so it could come back around, but right now I'm leaning more towards the business side because I love the strategy in it. That is something that gets me all excited. Is the marketing strategy and courses and helping those creatives who are so creative. They can create like just amazing things, right? But they don't know how to put them out in the world. So I'm like, hey, I'll be your planner. We'll figure this out. I'll make the plans for you or help you figure this out. And then you go put your wonderful work out in the world. So that's what I've leaned towards. I've got a digital marketing coaching program. So I've been helping, we have about a dozen people in there right now. And that's been really fun to build that out and to help them with their marketing. And then the book, of course, and I've got the free book club that comes around twice a year. So anybody who's interested in creating a workshop with the community, we're hosting that again this summer. But that's what I'm leaning towards. It's more the business side and teaching people how to get their work out there and less on the creative side and kind of keeping that for myself right now.
Mm-hmm. I get that. Well,
Yeah.
we only have so much energy to create and put things out in the world. And I've learned firsthand when you are too many, you're spread too thin, you can't do any one thing really well. And so to put all the energy into the thing that lights you up the most, and then to save that creation for your own personal fun as opposed to like your job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. So, what advice would you give to an aspiring quilter who's considering turning their passion into a business, specifically like workshops, teaching, marketing?
So definitely when you're thinking about hosting a workshop, you want something that you're excited to teach over and over again. You want to be, because it may be in demand. And if you're teaching live online, you're going to show up again and again and again teaching the same thing. If you go to a quilt shop, if it's a popular class, the quilt shop owner is going to be like, hey, can you do that again and again and again and again? So you want to make sure that when you're launching your workshops, you are excited about what you're about to teach. Something that lights you up and gives you energy. So I, like one example, a quilt shop that I worked at asked about applique. And I'm like, yeah, I could do an applique class. And we went into the applique class and it was a disaster. Because I don't like applique. And like, no matter how much I tried, like it's not going to be a great class because I don't like applique, but I can teach it. Like it's, but again, if I would have led with foundation paper piecing, which was kind of a passion at the time, that class would have gone way better than an applique class. And I'm able to teach foundation paper piece over and over and over again because it lit me up. It made me excited, gave me energy. And when you show up excited with energy, your classes are going to be way better than if you're showing up like, okay, we're going to do applique. And it's like, they can feel that energy where they're like, what? And It may not be apparent, but you're going to show up with that kind of like, well, I kind of like applique and it does do useful things. And let me show you how to do it.
That is too funny. I am also curious. I don't even know how to form this question. So I'll think out loud speak out loud as I'm thinking. But when I am like coaching people and they have ideas of business, whatever it might be, I can see some of their ideas have more stickiness to them, as in this is way more unique than that, or like this course will do way better than that course. Have you noticed that? And are you able to articulate or pinpoint why, besides the passion of like liking something, but is there a reason that you think certain workshops are more successful than others, by topic or whatever it might be?
I think that you're right, but it's hard to predict because it could be trends. It could be the way I find that the best teachers are the worst marketers.
Yeah, that is true.
Like, yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean, no offense to any name, but they're so good at what they do. That's why it's great to have a marketer on your team. But yeah.
Exactly. And I think that if you can lead with marketing inside your workshop. So when you're a teacher, you approach a workshop as a teacher and you're going to be super excited, but what you may not be super excited, but you've got that passion. You love to teach and you're going to show up with that, but you may not be thinking like a marketer in your workshops. And that's why the book is half course design, half marketing. And what it does is it walks you through not only as a teacher, but also how to market throughout the workshop experience. I call it the student's journey. So how are they meeting you? How are you showing up in the class and talking about what you're doing next? And like little things like that, where we don't think about it as teachers in the moment. We're focused on getting them through and making sure they're successful, answering their questions, and doing what we need to be doing in the classroom. We don't always think about how to encourage them to look for another class or look for what else you offer. And it's just those little bits and pieces. And there is a section that walks you through how to create an enticing description, which I think is one reason why some are, I think you said stickier, I like that. The stickier than others is because they're able to articulate what the workshop is about better. Not necessarily the topic, but and then the project too is something you got to look at. Like I learned a cactus isn't going to really appeal online, but the people in Arizona, they loved it. So it's kind of learning your audience, learning who you want to appeal to. I think getting really good visuals is also another part of it, is really being able to showcase what they're going to be learning. So if they're learning texture for quilting, you really want to get pictures of the texture that you can create with what you're actually teaching, and then show it in use. So that beautiful table runner they're going to learn to quilt, you want to make sure it's pictured on the table so they can see that they're going to create that beautiful texture that makes this beautiful centerpiece on their dining room table or on their coffee table. And then have a description that kind of illustrates, this is the transformation. This is what you're going to be able to do with what you're going to learn after the workshop. And I think just those little bits here and there, those little tweaks that you can make are going to help a lot. So you don't necessarily have to change whatever you're doing, but maybe tweak it a little bit. and approach it a little
Mm-hmm.
bit differently to help it stick.
Yes. Okay. On this customer journey, I did want to talk about that and just add to it if I can, because I think it's genius and it doesn't come naturally to some teachers or, but on the quilter's journey. So let's say someone is teaching a mug rug workshop. We'll just go with that. So before I think of their journey, before they're ever going to want to make a mug rug, what will they want to do? They're going to want to learn how to use a sewing machine. So you could teach a course on that and then upsell this. Or let's say they're in the mug rug course. If you go and sell them another mug rug pattern, well, they've kind of already scratched that itch. So now they've learned to make a mug rug. So what's the next natural step? Oh, what if now we made a bowl? Or what if we made something bigger? So you think of their natural progression and you sell to that or attract them at the beginning and move them on to the next step. And then at the next step, what comes next? Because I heard someone say they bought a bowling ball and then the upsell was like, another bowling ball. And he was like, well, I just bought a bowling ball. I don't want that. But then later someone was like, oh, now you need a glove so that you can do this and you'll need shoes. And so you just think of what's the next natural thing that they're going to want to buy and provide that or sell that next thing. And even hearing you speak, I have all these ideas going. So I know you're good at what you do because you're getting the wheels turning and it's making me excited about my business. So yay.
Yay, that's exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the student's journey is I think it's so hard for teachers because we don't always flip the script and put ourselves in our students' shoes. And that's something I think is a valuable skill as a teacher, is being able to put yourself in your student's shoes and think about how could you get someone even interested in what you want to teach? And then kind of start there. Like, where are they going to see this class? Is it going to be online? Is it going to be on the Quilt Shops page? Is it going to be on the Quilt Shops newsletter? Like, how can you assist the Quilt Shop in getting that interest going? And that starts with just a description, like we talked about, like having an enticing description. And then from there, how are they going to prepare for the workshop? So I even get in the nitty gritty. I'm like, how are they going to go? Are you sending them an email? What's that email going to contain? If you're having people sign up a month in advance, how are you going to keep them interested to actually show up for the class in a month? You got to think through those little bits and pieces too. And then the upselling, what's going to be next? And what is great is asking for feedback in the class and seeing where are they thinking of going? Are they thinking I get a lot of teachers who want to start with basics of quilting. So it's okay, we're going to start with basics. You teach them how to make their very first quilt and then ask them where do they want to go from there. And many times, it's going to be pre-cuts. And so you can have something on hand that is okay, my next class for you, if you're interested in keep going, is this one that introduces how to use the different pre-cuts. So you can have, one for layer cakes, one for charm packs, one for jelly rolls, one for bat quarter bundles, and have all those in work. Even online, if you teach in person, be hey, I've even got them online. So if you can't make it all the time, you can jump online and take them there. And just leading with that student's journey. What's going to be first, next, last? Yeah. And then what could be next if they don't want to end there? I love that. I love that your mind works that way. Because
I know as you're speaking, I'm like, ooh, yes, I can geek out on this for a long time.
I don't always get that feedback where it's don't you want to talk about this and this and this? And I love that you do that. I love that you go into detail.
Yes, that's my happy place. So for our listeners who are wait, hold on, what is this book? What's the book? Where can they find you? Where can they follow you? All the things.
So the book is called Workshops Unleashed, How to Design Engaging and Successful Workshops for Quilters and Crafters. It does have a lot of quilting examples in it, but it can teach anyone how to create a workshop. It goes through, like I said, course design and marketing. So it has a 10-day launch plan inside it. It also has that amazing secret podcast. You'll hear Elizabeth talk on it. And you can find me at thequiltpatchbytori.com. And I'm changing my name currently. So if you're listening to this a little bit older, it could be Hey Tori .tech. So I'm kind of changing to Hey Tori because that's where my clients always are like, Hey Tori, and they ask me a question. So I kind of came up with that fun name. So it's Hey Tori .tech. And you can also find me on Instagram at Hey Tori .tech. Those are my main two places.
Yay. Well, thank you so much. You are just a wealth of knowledge and experience, which sometimes they don't come hand in hand, but you've walked the walk, you have been down that path. And thank you for coming here and sharing your insight and knowledge.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, so much. This was really fun.
Tori, wow, what a fun conversation. This is our happy place. And if you're here listening to the podcast, I'm sure you loved all the deep dives that we took as well. And you could also geek out over the marketing and the business and tips on how to upsell and downsell and the customer journey. So if you are a crafter and you are interested in teaching either online or in person, make sure to check out Tori's new book, The Workshops Unleashed, or visit her on Instagram. She's just a wealth of knowledge and experience. So thank you so much, Tori, for being a guest here on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast. There are brand new episodes that are coming your way soon, and you do not want to miss a thing. And until then, good luck with your business growth and your business journey. You are doing better than you think you are. So hang in there and know that I am in your corner cheering you on.